It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Craig, shut up. Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So welcome to another Reality Check with Craig Price. I am the aforementioned Craig Price. And this week, before I get to my guest, Maria Matarelli, I want to let you know I'm going to try something new. I should have been doing this all along, but my small, feeble little mind wasn't quite grasping the whole concept of getting interviews. So I'm still going to be interviewing guests. I am still going to interrupt them when they speak. And I'm probably still going to make lame, slightly inappropriate jokes. But starting from now on, what I'm going to try to do is showcase some of the other presenters at these events that I'm going to be speaking at. I mean, I do all these events, and I really don't have much time to meet and talk to the other speakers. Either they're speaking at the same time I am, like at a breakout session, or I'm speaking and then they're speaking, and there's rarely times when the two of us are not speaking together in a room. And we certainly don't get to meet each other long enough and sit down long enough to have a full-fledged podcast. So I thought maybe in advance of some of these events, I could interview them, which would give you access to some of these great experts, but then also I could promote some of the events that I'm at, so maybe we can boost some attendance as well. So this week, I have Maria Matarelli on to discuss Agile management. You know, every few years they invent a new style. There was Black Belt and Six Sigma, and then now there's Agile, and every few years they keep changing the names anyways. And these new styles come up, and I'm not 100% familiar with them. I hear the terms, but I don't really know the inner workings because I'm not a consultant, and I'm certainly not a project manager. So I don't get to learn what they are. And so I thought, since Maria and I were going to be at the Rochester Project Management Institute Professional Development Day on May 24th, if you want to register, you can go to pmirochester.org. And I'm kicking off the event, and then I'm going to be doing some breakout sessions, and I know that she's going to be doing a great breakout session while we're there. I thought it might be a good idea to ask Maria about some of these terms, like Agile management, what is in Agile management, some of the weird terms that go along with it, so I can find out what it's all about. And so, moving forward, hopefully to have a lot more great guests for you. Might be slightly more promotion, so please forgive that. But you know what? This is our 50th episode. Really not a lot of promotion up until now. So 50 episodes promotion-free, pretty good. 49. This one's 50. So without any further ado, let me introduce Maria Matarelli.
Yes.
And so, how did you get involved with PMI?
I've been involved with PMI for a number of years. It started off, my background was in traditional project management, and as a project manager, and felt that it would be valuable to be involved in the local PMI community. So I joined the Central Illinois chapter, and then for the last 2 years, I've been on the board of directors as VP of operations, and I recently handed that baton over at the turn of the year.
So you're free at last.
Yes, a little bit, although I'm still heavily involved as a volunteer. I've been helping with the PMI Agile Community of Practice, sort of as a liaison to the chapter. And then I also speak at a lot of different chapter events and then regional meetings and conferences as well.
Oh, okay. And my guest today is Maria Matarelli, and she is an Agile management specialist. And she is going to be speaking along with me at the PMI Rochester Professional Development Day on May 24th. So if you're in the Rochester area, sign up now. If you're listening to this after the fact, you missed a hell of a program. But Agile management, there's so many different management styles and terms and things. What exactly is Agile management? Because I'm familiar with the term. I have no idea what the operation of it is.
Yeah, so Agile is an approach to getting the work done that is kind of going back to the basics. Sometimes when people hear what Agile is, they say, I've done that many years ago. We just didn't call it that. So Agile embodies a philosophy of more collaboration, bringing in your customer earlier, having frequent feedback loops, and constantly just inspecting and adapting on what it is that you're doing and focusing on delivering incrementally. So there are some techniques that project managers may have used for many years, but one way to look at it is an Agile approach. There's other specific frameworks or methodologies underneath that you can use. It's really just about trying to get the most value to your customer as soon as possible, because there's so many different things that are happening in the marketplace today. It's really a great way to look at how to keep up better in the market.
So it's certainly more speed-based, time frame oriented.
Yeah, a big concept. Oh, go ahead.
No, go you. Because when I think of agile management, I'm thinking of like dodging responsibility and moving out of the way so someone else can get in trouble. The agile marketing, agile management just sounds like movement. It just sounds like you're moving.
It is about movement, but not as much dodging out of the way, but it does embody more of a servant leadership approach. So you want to really empower the team to get the work done and focus on delivering that value to the customer. So being agile refers to responding to change and being able to take things that are changing in the market and being able to respond to that. So agile as a team, you want a team working as a close-knit unit and really just focusing on getting that value to market. So agile is in the team's ability to adapt and basically keep up with the changes that are happening, not so much just getting out of dodging responsibility or anything like that.
No, but it's definitely time frame oriented and about adapting as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Another term that's often used is an iteration or a sprint. So identifying a period of time that you can focus on what's our goal for this next period and what's something that we can deliver in an incremental fashion.
And then you said scrum, which sounds like a fight. People get into a scrum, but that's another. Is that a subset of Agile? Is that something you use with Agile, or is it its own little method?
Scrum is a specific framework that is often used when people do use an Agile approach, and the term comes from rugby. So when the players are getting together on the field right before they're about to go out, that little huddle, they call that the scrum. So that's where the term comes from.
Right. It's also when British people get drunk and fight with each other, they get into a scrum.
That happens.
But that comes from the rugby term because it looks very similar. I guess in rugby they all put their arms on each other's shoulders but it seems like it's just a mass of humanity getting ready to kick a ball. But the point is they come together.
Absolutely.
Now, the one thing I keep seeing over and over when I did my research for agile agile management, I don't know why I've been thinking marketing all week, but agile management is that it seems to be hard to maintain. The biggest problem I keep hearing is that, yeah, we did agile management, we're just not doing it now, we just didn't keep up with it.
One thing that's really important that is a concept that may not always get the level of importance is sustainable pace. So sustainable pace is where a team can find their rhythm at being able to work in those iterations and being able to work at a pace that they can operate on a long-term scale, so indefinitely. And when people think of Agile and they think of doing, releasing work in an iterative fashion, you look at with Scrum, there's a term called the sprint. So that's exactly what it means. You're looking at what can we get to market, what's something that's potentially shippable that we can deliver to our customers in a short period of time. And if you just have one sprint back to back, then it can feel like, you might have the potential of getting burnt out. So finding that sustainable pace is really important for people that are using Agile. And then also making sure that as you're doing this approach, that it works in the method and the right approach for your environment. So not just saying, this didn't work right, so let's just throw it out the window, it doesn't work. But it's finding how to make it work within your environment as well. And
when you say environment, the first thing I think of when you said that is like, well, what kind of industry is this suited for? Because it sounds to me, and from what I've seen, is a lot of software people use Agile because they're trying to push, their program, their applications out as quickly as possible and what I would like to call the Microsoft way, with enough bugs or fixed that people won't complain. Not that it's perfect, but it's just that they send it out the door with enough bugs fixed that anything else that people complain about is not as big a deal. Is there a specific industry that this is better suited for?
So Agile does have a lot of background in software development, but it is used across a variety of industries. And I mentioned Scrum because it is one of the most popular frameworks that is used with an Agile approach. And there was a conference about a year ago that the Scrum Alliance put on called Scrum Beyond Software. And it was just all about how to use Scrum outside of software development. And there's been a lot of talk about Agile outside of software as well. So the techniques, the principles can definitely be applied in different industries, but it does have a lot of background in software development because Agile works very well for complex, large, complex problems or projects. So if you have something that's very complex, difficult, not quite sure how to approach it, the best thing to do is break off a small piece and focus on that and then deliver that and then proceed from there.
So walk me through some of this management style. If we're going to start so we'll say we're developing software for something. We've got the next big thing coming out. Is there certain steps that we have to take? I'm assuming there's a process. It's not just constantly being flexible and reacting to things. That would be the horrible. That would be you want reaction to be a side benefit. That because we're doing this, we're able to react better. But what are the first couple steps of Agile management that differ than most styles?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it's definitely not just mayhem, cowboy coding, throw it all up in the air and see what happens. There is a little bit of a guidance around it. So as you're getting ready to plan a project using an Agile approach, rather than a traditional project management approach where you might plan out a detailed project schedule and identify multiple detailed tasks and who's going to work on them, estimate how long it's going to take, and put all that together in grave detail up front. Rather than that, we just want to identify what are our high-level features or what are the main things that we're going to be delivering for this project. And that's identified in what's called a product backlog. So this could just be a list. Don't even need a fancy tool for it, although there are some great tools out on the market. But I've run lots of Agile projects just using Microsoft Excel, having a list of here's the main features or the main functionality of what we want to deliver. And working with your team to identify what's that cadence that you're going to look at delivering in. So is it going to be 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, or maybe even in 1 week? So identifying what's that rhythm that we want to plan on delivering something, or at least developing something that could be delivered in that time period. Once you identify your cadence and you have a list of the work, then you want the team to identify what they feel that they can complete in that time period. And this is where we get back to the idea of the team being self-organizing. We want to trust our experts to identify what they can do in what time period. And from a management approach, we want to identify the what. What is it that we need done? And then leave it to our team to come up with the how, because they're going to be the experts that can come up with the best way and the best approach for that. So once you identify the work, I determine what your iteration is that you're going to be working in, have the team pull that work in. Then you really want to leave it to the team and protect the team from outside disruptions so they can focus on completing what it is that they plan to do in that time period. And then the goal is at the end of that iteration, be able to have something that could either be released to your customer or potentially released. And then you have a showcase or a demo and get some early feedback. And then that helps you identify if you're still on the right track or if you might want to pivot a little bit moving forward.
So it's really like more of a macro management style than a micromanagement style, because rarely that's one of the biggest complaints I hear from project managers is that they're not allowed to do what they were hired for, and engineers and everything. It's like, you hired me because of my specialty. Just tell me what you want the finished product to be and let me do it. And it sounds like that's
Absolutely.
What your job is, just to get the higher ups, some of the stakeholders, to leave them alone.
Yep, absolutely.
It's Smokey and the Bandit, only you are the bandit. You're distracting the police from finding the snowman. Is that a good analogy?
Yeah, sometimes that's what we do, right? And if you look at a traditional project management approach, there's a lot of delegation, authority, telling people what to do, assigning tasks, setting deadlines. But in Agile, we want to say, all right, here's the big picture, here's the vision. All right, how are we going to get there? And then letting the team focus on that how, and then absolutely protecting them at all costs from outside factors. Because we all know, you hear so many studies about multitasking and context switching, and you lose so much ground just from the time it takes to switch context and what you're working on.
And then, of course, there's always the change in scope, which drives everybody crazy. regardless.
Oh, always.
So there's some terms that I heard when it comes to Agile that I wanted you to explain to some people, because the word velocity keeps coming back. Is that part of that pace or that rhythm that you're talking about, or is that something different?
Yeah, so with velocity, it's looking at what's the rate that the team can complete the work. So by having a fixed duration for every iteration that the team's working in, you start to see, what amount of work can the team do in that time period. So having that cadence is important so that the team can start to get in their rhythm, and then they start to be able to estimate a little bit with more certainty over time how much work they can get done in that time period.
Oh, okay, and that's what I thought. I wanted to make sure that I didn't misread that velocity. And then the other word that keeps popped up that I liked, if from what I understand, is retrospective, which
yes.
Explain a retrospective. Besides it sounds like a clip show where you're going to look back at our project and see all the great highlights, but it's not that. It's a little more complex.
Oh, yes, so much more. So retrospective is the concept of reflecting on how things are going. And in traditional project management, we do this often we call it lessons learned. And we'll do that at the end of the project. So oftentimes, you get everybody in the meeting, you talk about what worked, what didn't work. Somebody types up a very nice document about it, and they might put it in a shared drive or subfolder somewhere, and it may or may not see the light of day again. Some people even refer to those meetings as postmortem. So with Agile, we want to be inspecting and adapting throughout the project, and we want to be doing that reflection periodically so we can actually adapt and make those changes to see the benefits of those changes. So retrospectives are one of the most important aspects of using an Agile approach, because it's taking the time after every sprint or iteration and saying, okay, team, what's working well? Is there anything not working? And then what do we specifically want to do to improve? A concept that's often thrown around with Agile is continuous improvement. So being able to take that time to honestly reflect on how things are going is what really helps the team to not only continuously improve, but also get a little bit closer to the state of higher performance.
Well, it sounds like if you're going to be running around as fast as you guys are at times, doing those sprints and the scrums and things like that, that you might learn some things, but because you're going so fast, you don't take time to record them, which is why these retrospectives seem like they're so important. I mean, they look great. That's perfect. I love people who are able to look back and not only look at what went right, but what went wrong, so they can learn from it. And is there it sounds like you're constantly going to be in a communication. Is there a certain communication style that works best for this? Is this going to be whiteboards and text messages, or is this going to be meeting together because it's people all over the world? Is there a preferred method of communication?
Yeah, it works best if you have a co-located team, although I have worked on projects and worked with teams that have been widely distributed. So if you can have people in the same room, constant communication, and osmotic communication, where people overhear things that are going on and everyone stays up to speed. Definitely a lot of whiteboards and a lot of Post-it notes. So if needed, absolutely communicate however is necessary. We recently just ran the first Agile project for the PMI Central Illinois chapter as a website migration project, and I was the Agile coach for this project. We ran into a couple roadblocks throughout the way, and I was calling the different VPs on the board of directors and saying, hey, I need you to help us remove this roadblock. We need to know this information. And I had one of the guys took a picture of his screen and texted it to me. And I just forwarded that right on to our development team. And it was just great. It doesn't matter as much, is everything documented perfectly, or is there formal communication? It's, can we get the information we need so that we can move forward?
Well, it sounds like it's just the most fluid way of doing a really intense project. Now, have you run into instances where maybe the Agile method wasn't particularly the best? Is there times when Agile management may not be the best situation to use because it is too fast, it may not fit?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely not a one silver bullet or one thing to solve all problems. With Agile, it works well if you can break the work into smaller pieces, and sometimes some projects, it's very difficult to break the work down into pieces. So that could be one thing. I've also worked with organizations where they have very defined processes. So if it's a repeatable project, and it's something that you're not necessarily reinventing the wheel. Well, if you have a lot of historical actuals and you have a lot of things documented from history, why switch to a new method or approach when you pretty much have it down to a science that can cause little disruption? Sometimes within a certain organization and with their culture and environment, it may be tough to introduce Agile. You may get benefits from some techniques, but there is definitely some projects that, some projects may be better suited to a traditional approach.
And if you wanted to try to master the Agile method, how do you convince a team that's not used Agile methods before the importance of it? Because I think I think people can recognize the fact that being fast and being adaptable can be good in the short term, but that doesn't mean they want to actually do that. Exercising is great, running is good, but I don't want to do that. I'd much rather find something that's a little easier. How do you convince some people who've never been in an Agile system its benefits? Is there one thing that you really can just tell people that just blows their minds?
Yeah, that's a good question. It helps if you can get a common understanding with everybody on the team, whether that's training or exposing them to Agile and gaining that common understanding where everybody is on the same page with it. At this point, we're starting to hit some misperceptions in the industry where some people might have heard Agile or they did it once or tried it once. They might say it didn't work, but not sure whether they were really using Agile or doing it in a more pure than non-pure form. So
can you give an example? Can you give an example of a misperception? Because I think people might actually know more of the misperceptions than the actual perceptions.
Yeah, I think a lot of people hear the word Agile as starting to become a bit of a buzzword. So they may have been exposed to it, but not fully understand what that means. Or there's different hybrid approaches. So if someone isn't using a full Agile approach, they might have been using a hybrid approach. And depending on what you use or do not use, or where you sort of make those negotiations on what parts of Agile you're using, you may gain or miss out on some benefits. So if you're just delivering iteratively, you might see some benefits. If you're not taking time to retrospect and incorporate those changes moving forward, you might not see those benefits. So there's definitely things where if you're using Agile, if you've been in an environment or heard someone talking about it, they might think, oh, this is Agile, but it might have been a different flavor of it or a hybrid approach. So sometimes it gets a bad rap, or people might not really understand what you mean when you're saying Agile. So one thing that's really great for introducing it to new teams is to just have them experience it. And sometimes that might be by not using the full terminology and having them all trained on how to speak it in an Agile way or using a specific framework or approach. Maybe it's just applying the technique that is a little bit common sense and saying, you know what, let's not have a status meeting once a week for an hour and just go over all the milestones and where we're at in our project. Let's have a daily stand-up. Let's touch base for the 15 minutes every day and want to know, what have you worked on? What do you plan to do? And do you have any roadblocks? Or let's start looking at how we can break down the work into smaller pieces. You know what, let's pull our customer in and let's see what they think about this. Let's make sure all of our stakeholders are seeing where we're at throughout the project. So you can start to do some things that are Agile in their nature without necessarily flipping everybody upside down and making them speak in a whole new way.
So just like Agile is good when you have to do a project that you can break down into pieces, you can actually break down the Agile management process into pieces as well and kind of build up to a full-fledged Agile method?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, because like I said, I've seen it. I've seen it in action. I've heard people rave about it. I know it works. It's just one of these. It is one of these things that you think you know about it when you hear it, because it does make sense that it's called Agile. Fast, quick, flexible, moves around. It's just that often what you hear and what is actually the truth are two drastically different things.
Right. As far as introducing it to a team or in your organization, it always helps if you have management support. So having champions throughout the organization can definitely help you, bringing in, having solid training for the team so that they can all be on the same page and get off on the right foot. even if your team's distributed, being able to bring them together and have them meet each other and start that bonding of the collaboration, those can all be good things for getting off on the right foot in a larger organization.
And last thing before you go, because I really appreciate you taking time to be here. Is just another little buzzword that I kind of think I know what it is, but I want to make sure that we clarify it and you talk about it a little bit. Is information radiators? It sounds like it makes sense, but then it starts getting, when you start thinking about it, it starts getting maybe confusing and vague. So what exactly is an information radiator besides someone who just leaks information all over the place?
So information radiators is also a phrase often used with Agile, and it goes back to making things visible. So when we make stuff visible, everyone can be a little bit more likely to be on the same page. So whether that's printing your what's going on in your project, what's the next feature you're working on, putting that on the wall, literally putting charts, post-it notes, making things visible for the team to see, for stakeholders to see. So an information radiator can be anything that's used to radiate the information of what's going on with the project. That way, you have people walking by, they can see right there, oh, here's what they're working on, here's what's in progress, and here's what's done. So you can see that without interrupting the team to ask them where they're at. And really, this helps keep everybody on the same page. So to identify, hey, here's a sprint goal, or here's a goal that we want to accomplish for this next period of time, you know what, let's write that big and visible. Make sure that everybody can see it so that we all know that's the vision, that's what we're targeting for. So information radiators, it's really key, and it's a great concept as far as, let's just put this out in front of people. We're having a conversation, you know what, somebody get up, write that on the whiteboard. Hey, keep that in front of the team so they can see that and constantly be reminded of where we're at. So really just a way for keeping everybody on the same page and also radiating information out to the organization.
So it's an easy access hub, not just an access hub. It has to be easy for people to see it, grab it, and get it. Can't remember the software now, but it's one of the software you had to check things out all the time. You'd check a document out or a file out because they didn't want, if you changed it, they wanted to make sure they followed up the changes. But it's like, well, if I just want to see what it is, it just seems to be complicated. So you're talking about just slapping it out there so it's transparent, people can find it quickly.
Absolutely.
Well, Maria, I know where you're going to be on May 24th. You're going to be in Rochester. But where can other people find you? Because I know you do consulting as well. Where else can they find you besides in Rochester on May 24th?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yep, May 24th we'll be doing the session on experiencing Agile. So it'll really be an Agile project simulation. So if people want to get an overview of Agile and learn by doing, definitely come out on May 24th in Rochester, New York. This weekend I'll be in Minnesota at a PMI Region 2 Leadership Conference. And then I'll be heading over to Marseille, France, and it's the PMI Leadership Institute meeting and also the master's class there.
Ooh la la, they say. That's fancy dancy over there.
I'll be hanging out in Chicago for a little while, and then after being in New York, I will also be in Indiana, and then speaking in Lebanon, and also at the Agile 2012 conference, I'll be leading a session it's going to be in Grapevine, Texas, and that's put on by the Agile Alliance. So if you want to follow me, I'll definitely forward you my LinkedIn information. Would love to have anybody come out to any of these conferences or events, or definitely catch me in the Chicago area.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time. I look forward to meeting you in person. We'll lower expectations as we go along for that meeting. But I look forward to seeing you in May, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to thank Maria for coming on the show. If you're interested in hearing us speak on the 24th of May, you can go to pmirochester.org and sign up. I would love to see you there. Don't be afraid to come up and say hi if you do show up. As always, any comments, suggestions, or complaints, Craig at speakercraigprice.com. Until next week, see you then.